Before Semi-Ramblomatic was Semi-Ramblomatic, it was Extra Punctuation. And before it was Extra Punctuation, it was Dev Diary, my fortnightly video journal where I talked about my favourite hobby of indie game development. And in the second series, the development of my long-term project, Starstruck Vagabond, specifically. Well, just in case I haven't banged on about it enough, Starstruck Vagabond came out on Steam a few weeks ago, so I thought it might be time for a bit of a post-mortem. I suppose I can report that Starstruck Vagabond has certainly been the most successful game I've ever put out, and about as positive a result as I'd want for a monetized hobby. I bring this up because after indie retro-style shooter Silico came out a while back, I gave it a relatively positive review. But because I didn't pat it on the head and give it a gold star like a cooing kindergarten teacher, I got some nasty messages from its hardcore fans, accusing me of being jealous because my game didn't sell as much, which is one of the many parts of that video's response that confused the fuck out of me. Of course Starstruck Vagabond didn't sell as much as a shooter. That doesn't bother me. It was always going to be niche. It's a game about delivering crates to places, chilling out on long trips through space while a weird story about a giant purple egg slowly unfolds in the background. It's a game specifically made to be the kind of thing that appeals to me, personally, and I'm reliably informed that I'm a weirdo. I mean, if as a creative you're not making stuff that you'd personally enjoy consuming, then you're either in the wrong line or an artisanal coffin maker. Yeah, it must be my jealousy that fuels my criticism. I hadn't put a game out in about 7 years, so I was really starting to run on fumes with all my reviews in the intervening years. I had to get by on doom-scrolling political news and masturbation denial. Okay. Here's a little rule from someone who's spent 20 years on the internet. If anyone in an online argument claims that something doesn't bother them, then they're a big fat liar, because if it truly didn't bother them, they wouldn't have brought it up. So fine, you win. I'm slightly bothered that the Silico fanboys brought up my own indie game to accuse me of sour grapes. Ideally, I wish I could separate the world in which I am a game critic from the world in which I am an indie game developer. People get knee-jerk defensive about the games they like, much as the Silico dudes did, and putting out my own game exposed a vulnerability that allows the defensive to indulge in a little offense. And as well as making myself a target, I worry that some people interpret a critic putting out a work of their own with a sort of unspoken statement that the critic thinks their thing must be better than all the stuff they've criticised over the years. Not at all. There's some crossover when you both make games and criticise them, but they're still largely different skill sets, and no amount of experience in what makes a satisfying gameplay loop can make my coding skills suck less. But it was because I felt I was exposing a vulnerability by the mere act of releasing Starstruck Vagabond that I made probably my biggest mistake. If I had to pick one major lesson learned to display on the wall of my office in neon sparklers, it would be this: test more. So afraid of backlash was I that I left testing to the last minute to make sure I could make it as finished as possible before anyone else saw it. In the end, we only had time for 6 or 7 testers to go through it for a few weeks. I assumed it'd be fine since I'd played so much of it and it seemed to work perfectly well. No, bad Yahtzee. Players will always find ways to fuck the game up that the creators never considered, and that's doubly true for a game with procedural elements. On launch there were small groups of players who found serious save-corrupting bugs and soft locks that only happen in highly specific circumstances or random seeds, like cutscenes hanging on some planets because the random scenery spawned a dirty great rock in the spot an NPC needed to be standing in before the scene could continue. I'm starting to see the appeal of early access, especially for all developers who are short on resources, i.e. me. Thankfully, after sweatily pumping out hotfixes and patches for the first couple of weeks, the game's on much more solid ground, so the new update can focus on fun additions and gameplay improvements rather than bug fixes. The feedback I felt most moved to act upon largely concerned the late game experience. Again, something that more prolonged testing might have revealed sooner. Players were complaining about having too much money and too many unspent upgrade units. See, there are 100 upgrade units in total to find in the game, but buying every single upgrade in the game only takes about 50 odd. That was a deliberate design choice, because I wanted the player to have some flexibility in what they chose to do, and assumed most wouldn't actually want to collect every single one of the buggers. That was another wrong assumption on my part. Optional is a very shaky word in video games. Everything's optional. It's make-believe fun times. And to paraphrase Sans from Undertale, if a player can, then they have to. I figured players could just sell the excess units for money, but turns out the major thing to spend money on is upgrades. So, whoops. First priority for gameplay improvements then, ways to soak up all these upgrade units and money. Obvious solution, more upgrades. There's a bunch in the new update: improved weapons, improved facilities, and a sprint function. Some people were asking for that, some people liked the general methodical pace. I figured making it an optional upgrade was the right compromise. But what about all this money players are building up? One-time upgrades can only stem that so much. We need more effective scamming methods. Enter FixBot, a new addition to shipyards. FixBot will completely repair every issue with your ship and fill up the gas tank for 3,000 credits. That's expensive for something the player can do themselves for free, intentionally so. He doesn't show up until a ways into the game because he's designed as a mid to late game option for players who have money to burn and want to get on with things and bypass some of the minutiae they've already done enough times to prove themselves. Distress call missions were another thing that feedback led me to wanting to address. Originally, passing ships would flag you down to help with one of two issues: their ship needing repairs or a bunch of zoobs on board that need killing. The problem with that was players were getting weary of the zoobs because dealing with zoobs tended to take a lot longer than the ship repairs, slippery little buggers that they are, so it felt like zoob missions were disproportionately more present even though it's technically a 50-50 split. My solution for this was to add more kinds of distress missions consisting of quick and simple tasks, lowering the odds of the zoob mission showing up. So now there's another kind of distress mission where you break up junk aboard a ship looking for a lost PDA, similar to what you do on derelicts, and another where you help clear red weed off a ship once red weed is introduced in the second quadrant. And the other main thing I felt was worth addressing was the tumultuous world of romance. Yes, if you haven't yet been tempted to try Starstruck Vagabond out, let me make this as clear as possible. It has space waifus. We've got hot scientists, hunky boys, snakes with tits, something for everyone, and if they like you enough, you get to kiss them. Trouble was, that was all you could do. This was another late game issue. Once you successfully got them up to maximum affection and triggered the option to romance them, there'd be one fade out, fade up implied nobbing session, and that was it. It would never trigger again, and the characters were essentially done with. There'd be no more development or story scenes, and the nobbing session would go uncommented on forever. A space elephant in the room. My solution for this was firstly to make it possible for romanced characters to request more private meetings after the initial one, and then to add a bunch of alternative regular dialogues that crew members only say after you've romanced them. It was fun to explore the way the different personality types shift when they're in love. Some of them get sappy, some of them get overprotective, some of them just get really horned up. And on top of that, the crew members now have alternative outfits that they put on after they've been romanced, which both gives the player a sort of visual trophy to mark the achievement and makes sense in context. They're newly in love, they're reinventing themselves, and their old outfit was probably gotten some unpleasant bodily fluids all over it. Meaning sweat, of course. What did you think I was talking about? So that's where things are at with Starstruck Vagabond. It's out on Steam, it's had a few weeks sweaty bug fixing, and it's got some new features. If you were holding off on buying it until the teething troubles were sorted, now's your chance, because it's back on 20% discount for the Steam summer sale at time of writing. Hope you like it. And now what you might call its second launch is over with, I'm gonna go catch up on sleep for the next 7 or 8 years.
If you've been enjoying our work for the past 6 months and want to help make sure we're sustainable for the long haul, joining us over on Patreon is the best way to make that happen. You can get a ton of great perks like ad-free podcasts, some written columns from Darren and Mooney and occasionally other writers, merch discounts, monthly movie nights, voting for the Game Yahtzee reviews during the summer game drought, and more. Your support so far has allowed us to continue bringing you the content you enjoy unimpeded, and we look forward to doing so for many more years to come. We release our financials publicly to you once a quarter so you can see how the business is doing and where your money is going. You can view our latest report for Q2 over on Patreon, the YouTube community tab, Twitter, or our Discord. Along with all the series, streams, and podcasts you've come to love, we have a lot of exciting things on the horizon. Be on the lookout for our new entertainment podcast, The Rewind, Marty's new retro show, The Archive, our upcoming Animal Well documentary, and the next big video from Good Blood, Metal Gear Untold. All coming soon to Second Wind.